Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Azim Azri bin Muhammad Nazri. Number metric 20251111 and 81 from class 80240 E. Today I want to present about pollination and fertilization in flowering plant. Introduction. What is pollination? Pollination is the process of transferring pollen grain from the anther male part to the stigma female part of a flower. This can happen within the same flower or between different flower and the same species. Why is pollination is important? Pollination is the first step in the sexual reproduction of flowering plant. It allows the male gamete from the pollen to reach the female gamete in ovule. Without pollination, fertilization cannot happen, and the plant will not produce seed or fruits. Pollination leads to fertilization of the egg cell, development of seed, formation of fruit, and continuation of plant life cycle. Type of pollination. There is two types of pollination. First, self-pollination. The pollen from the anther is transferred to the stigma of the same flower or another flower at the same plant. Occur in plant with bisexual flower having both male and female part. This process does not require external pollinator like insect or weed. Example, peas, wheat, rice and tomato. Advantage, simple and quick, less energy needed, no need to attract pollinator. Disadvantage, little or no genetic variation may reduce the plant ability to adapt to change in environment. Second, cross-pollination. The pollen is transferred from the anther of the plant to the stigma of a different plant of the same species, required to help the pollination agent such as insect, bees, butterfly, wind, water, or animal. Example, apple, sunflower, maize, pumpkin. The advantage, greater genetic variation, produce stronger and healthier offspring, and disadvantages depend on pollinator and environmental factor, slower and more energy consuming process. Next, pollinating agent. There is five pollinating agent. First, wind. Anemophily. Light, dry pollen is carried by the wind. Flowers are small, not showy, and do not produce scent or nectar. Example, grass and coconut. Second, water. Hydrophily. Water transport pollen between flower in aquatic plant, rare compared to other type. Example, Hydrilla and Vallisneria. Third, insect. Entomophily. Insects like bees, butterfly, and beetles carry pollen while visiting flower for nectar. Flowers are colorful, scent, and produce nectar to attract insects. Example, sunflower, rose, and hibiscus. Fourth, bud. Chiropterophily. Bud pollinate night blooming flower. Flowers are large, pale color, and have a strong scent, like baobab and banana. Lastly, bird. Ornithopholy. Birds like hummingbird help in pollination while feeding on nectar. Flowers are often red, large, and tubular with lot of nectar. Example, hibiscus and bombax. Male and female part of flower. First, male part, stamen or androecium. In the diagram of a flower, we can see the both male and female reproductive part. The male part shown on the one side is called stamen. He has two main components, the anther, which is the round top part of the produce and hold the pollen grain, and the filament, which is thin stalk that support the anther. Second, female part, carpel, pistis, or gynoecium. There is three main parts. First, stigma, which is sticky, receive pollen part with pollen. The style, which is tube that lead down into the ovary, and ovary itself, which contain one or more ovule. This ovule hold the female egg cell and will become seed after fertilization. Together, this power to ensure the pollen reach the egg and fertilization can take place. We move on to the next slide. Microporogenesis, pollen grain formation. What is microporogenesis? The process of forming pollen grain, male gamete from the microspore mother cell inside the anther of flower. Where is happen? Inside the pollen cells of the anther. Key step of microsporogenesis. Microsporogenesis happen in the anther. Mother spell divide by meiosis, form four haploid microspore, each become a mature pollen grain, and last pollen grain has tube cell and generative cell. First, from the diagram, we can see the microspore mother cell inside the anther. This cell undergoes meiosis, which is type of cell division that can reduce the microsome number by half. As a result, it produces four haploid microspore arranged in a group called a tetrad. These four microspores then separate and each one become an individual pollen grain. Inside a mature pollen grain, there are two important cells. The tube cell, which will grow into the pollen tube during fertilization, and generatively cell, which divide to form of two sperm cells. These sperm cells are what will eventually be involved in double fertilization. So this entire process takes place inside the anther and prepare the male part of the plant to reproduction. Then megasporogenesis, formation of egg cell in plant. The process of forming the female gamete egg cell inside the ovule of the ovary. Where does it happen? Take place inside the ovule, which is found in the ovary at the base of the pistil, female part of flower. From the diagram, we can see the process of forming the egg cell in flowering plant. Inside the ovary, there is ovule, and within it, a special cell called megaspore mother cell or MMC. The MMC undergoes meiosis just like in the male part and produces four haploid megaspore. But unlike in megasporogenesis, only one of these megaspores survive. The other three degenerate and disappear. The surviving megaspore undergoes three rounds of mitosis, result in eight nuclei which organize into seven cells. This form the embryo sac, which is the female gametopile. This structure is now ready to receive the pollen and go through fertilization. The structure of the embryo sac. The diagram shows the structure created from the surviving megaspore. At the bottom center, there is one egg cell. This is the actual female gamete that will fuse one of sperm cell during fertilization. On each side of egg, called two synegle. These cells help guide the pollen tube into the egg. At the top of diagram, we can see three antipod cells, whose role is not fully understood but may help to support the embryo sac. In the center, there is two pollen nuclei, which will later fuse with the second sperm to form the endosperm and the food storage tissue in seed. Altogether, the embryo sac contains seven cells with eight nuclei and each ready for the double fertilization process. Double fertilization in flowering plant. What is double fertilization? Double fertilization is a special process that only happens in flowering plant. It involves two sperm cells from the one pollen grain fertilizing two different parts of the female embryo sac. The importance of double fertilization is to ensure both embryo and food source endosperm are formed together. E- Efficient use of resource in seed development, unique to angiosperm flowering plant. The process of double fertilization. The pollen grain land on the stigma and grow a pollen tube through the style toward the ovule. The pollen tube carries two sperm cells into the embryo sac inside the ovule. One sperm cell fused with the egg cell form a zygote, two ends which become the embryo baby plant. The second sperm fused with the two polar nuclei in the center, form endosperm tree and a tissue that nourishes the embryo. Next, result of fertilization, seed and fruit development. First, seed development. The zygote formed from sperm plus egg development into an embryo. The ovule becomes the seed contains embryo, young plant, endosperm, food for the embryo, seed coat protective outer layer from entanglement. Second, fruit development. The ovary walls swell and change into a fruit. The fruit will help protect seed and aid into dispersal by wind and animal. If fertilization doesn't occur but fruit still form, it's called parthenocracy. Bananas. Plant life cycle. The diagram shows the entire life cycle of a flowering plant, starting with seed. When the seed lands in suitable condition, with enough water, warmth, and oxygen, it begins to germinate. The seedling grow, producing root, stem, and leaf. Over time, it becomes a nature plant with flower. The flower undergo pollination, followed by fertilization, which lead to the formation of seed and fruit. This fruit eventually release seed and the cycle begin again. This process repeats itself generation after generation, allowing the plant species to survive and spread. Seed contain baby plant, embryo, and food endosperm. Germination. The seed start to grow when conditions are right. Fertilization. Sperm form pollen join with egg inside the ovule. Pollination. Pollen move from the anther to stigma, self or cross. Mature plant. The plant growth, flower, and reproductive stage. Fruit and seed. Ovary become fruit, ovule become seed. Seed are dispersed and cycle start again. Let's jump to the conclusion. In summary, fertilization and pollination are essential phases in the life cycle of flowering plant. The cause seed and fruit are formed, which permit the growth of new plant and continuation of the cycle. These mechanisms are critical to the reproduction and plant and to the food that we eat. That's all from me. Thank you.